Real-world inequalities. You must be at least 18 years old to operate the equipment. That's what this sign says. Okay, so you're 18 years old. What does it mean to be at least 18 years old? Well, that means that you could be at 18 or greater. Okay, so we're not even going to focus in on the graphing that much. Right now, let's just focus in on the inequality. So what must your age be to operate this equipment? You're talking about your age has to be greater than or equal to 18. Let's try another one. You ever get on an elevator? Usually they have a sign. It's probably not yellow, but it's definitely there. You just look for it. It'll tell you elevator capacity limit, and it'll tell you a certain amount of pounds, right? It says do not exceed. This does not mean that there's like a 800-pound fat person getting on the elevator. That's not what it's talking about. You got to count how many people are getting on there, and think about how much total weight you have there. But anyways, as an inequality, this would be, let's talk about the weight, W. W has to be what? Can't be greater than 800 pounds. It could be 800 pounds because it says do not exceed 800 pounds. So it could be 800 or less. That's why is the weight, when you get on an elevator, has to be less than or equal to 800. Let's try another one. Here's another common sign that you're going to see in different places, especially restaurants. See, restaurants and different public places have to abide by the fire code. So you can't really cram as many people as you can inside a restaurant. There's a fire code, there's a fire limit, so there's a maximum of 42 people. Maximum occupancy not to exceed 42 people, 42 persons. So how many people could you actually have at this restaurant? You could have 42 or less. So what does that mean? P must be less than or equal to 42. You want to go to Disneyland? I want to go to Disneyland. Anyway, if you want to go to Disneyland and make sure you're able to get on the rides, you have to be at least 42 inches tall, right? Now, you got to be able to interpret the signs also. Right here it says 42 inches, and it looks like you have to be exactly that height. That's not the case. You could obviously be taller than 42 inches. So how do we write this down as an inequality? Let's talk about height here. So H, what does the height have to be? It has to be greater than or equal to 42 inches. Okay. Let's try another. I took this picture from one of my kids' Lego toys. Right here it says the ages for this Lego toy is 6 to 12. Okay, so this is actually two inequalities in one. Later on in the class, we'll be able to write this as a compound inequality, two inequalities in one. But right now, let's just write them down separately. So let's take a look at the 6. What does that mean? That means that how old do you have to be, and I'm talking about the age here, how old do you have to be able to play with this Lego toy? You have to be at least 6. So the age has to be greater than or equal to 6, right? That's one inequality. And how about over here, 12? Your age has to be less than or equal to 12, okay? I mean, this is just a suggestion, right? I mean, yeah, of course, kids could play, if they're 5 years old, they could play with this thing. You probably don't want to give it to a baby, they could probably choke. And of course, if you're 13 years old, you could still play with it. This is just a recommendation. It'd be pretty messed up if you actually took this literally and you took inequalities too far.
If Dad could build it with us. Yeah! Because I built this one, so Hey Dad, could you build this with us? Yeah, come. I could build it.
You want me to build this with you guys?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. It says for ages
6 to 12.
How old are you?
I'm 6.
How old are you?
4.
Well, you can't do it then. wait a minute, this says from ages 6 to 12, and I'm a lot older than 12, so sorry, buddy, can't help you. So, yeah, inequalities are everywhere in the real world. Obviously, I let my kids build that Lego set, but anyways, there's a couple of other details I wanna mention when it comes to words inside inequalities. Check it out. This is actually from our worksheet 5.3 WSP, and I do want to jump to the ones that have words in them. Let's do like number 12, for example. A number is less than 1/4 the sum of 3 times the number and 4. Man, that's a mouthful of a sentence. So how about this? Let's take a piece at a time. A number is less than. Okay, so what are we going to say? A number. You could put n, you could put x, whatever variable you want to represent a number. Now, is less than, that's going to be the less than symbol. Okay. What else? So a number n is less than 1/4. 1/4 is the fraction 1/4. So let's write that down. 1/4 of what? 1/4 of the sum of 3 times the number and 4. Okay, so what does sum mean? It means you're going to be adding. But since it says 1/4 the sum, you're going to say 1/4 times some parentheses. And inside these parentheses, we're going to be doing the sum. We're going to be adding. Okay, so what is it that we're going to be adding? It says the sum of, if I were to just say the sum of 3 and 2, the sum of 3 and 4, that would be 3 plus 4. Okay, so right here we have the sum of 3, but it doesn't just say 3, it says 3 times the number and then and 4. So the sum of 3 times a number and 4. Okay, so 3 times a number is 3n and 4. The sum of 3 times a number and 4. Here's your inequality. I know it's kind of complicated, but that's how to write it out. And of course, to solve this thing, you're gonna have to go through many steps here. If you want, you could get rid of the fraction altogether by multiplying everything by 4. So let's do that. Let's multiply by 4. So when you go times 4 here and times 4 over here, now notice, I'm not going to multiply these inside guys by 4, because whatever you do to this outside term that you will distribute anyway, it's like if you did it to the inside terms anyway. So if you just multiply this 1/4 by 4, it'll cancel out, and you don't have to worry about the inside of the parentheses. So let's do that. Let's cancel out the 4's. And over here you have 4n is less than, you have a 1 left over, 1 parentheses 3n plus 4. Now, of course, distributing the 1 is not going to change anything. So you're going to have to rewrite this thing, and you're going to have 4n on the left side. 4n on the left side is less than, and we have 3n plus 4 without parentheses. Now, I did not change the inequality. It still stays less than because I did not multiply the whole inequality by -1. I didn't divide the whole thing by -1, so it stays the same. Let's continue working here. I need to get n by itself on one side. So I don't want n here and n there. I want to get rid of this 3n by doing the opposite of 3n, which is minus 3n. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. 4n take away 3n is 1n. So we will have 1n is less than 4. And 1n, you don't even need the 1 right there. You could just write it as n. And that's your answer, guys. N equals 4. Now, on the back of this worksheet, it'll be in set notation. So if you did use n, they're going to have these funky little brackets. And you're going to use n with a little wall right there. And then the answer, n is less than 4. And then close it with those funky brackets. Okay? And that's about it. But that's not the confusing part that I was talking about earlier. The confusing part that I was talking about earlier is when you have something like this, no more than. Because see, the word more than means greater. But when you throw in that no right in front of it, when you throw in this no right in front of it, it actually means less than or equal to. Okay, I know it's really confusing. More than actually means greater, but when you throw in the no right in front of it, it makes that greater than change to a less than. Okay, I mean, think about it. Let's just, instead of going with the sentence, let's think about something that we could normally think about. Like, let's say, like I mentioned in class, my son wants to make some money. He says, Dad, could I clean the backyard? I say, yeah. He's like, can you pay me? I'm like, yes, I'll pay you. He's like, how much are you going to pay me? I say, no more than $5. Well, what does that mean? That means I could pay him 5, but I could pay him 4 or 3 or 2 or maybe just 25 cents, right? No more than is really less than or equal to. So let's read through number 13 here and write down what we need to write down. It says 2 times the sum of a number and 4. Okay, so we already know that sum means add, and we're going to put it in parentheses. Okay, so inside there, we're going to be adding the sum of what? Of a number and 4. So here's a number, here's 4, okay? And in the front, it says 2 times. So we need to put a 2 times out here in the front. 2 times. So this is what we have so far. 2 times the sum of a number and 4. And then we continue reading. 2 times the sum of a number and 4 is no more than, less than or equal to, 3 times, so let's write that down, 3 times, and it says the sum, over here it says the sum again, so again I'm going to do parentheses with a plus right in the middle, but let me move this over so we can see what's actually being summed up. It says 3 times the sum of what? Of the number and 7. And then it says decrease by 4. Okay, so let's do this first. Let's do the number and 7. So let's put n in here and then 7 right there. And then it says decreased by 4. So what is decreased by 4? The sum, or 3 times the sum of a number and 7. All of that is going to be decreased by 4. So decreased by means minus. So I'm going to put minus 4 at the very end. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the equation that we need to solve. Now, that's really nasty, right? But we can do it. Let's actually rewrite this over here where we have more space. So there's my inequality. Let's make it a little bigger and let's work this out. So first thing to do when you're solving an equation or an inequality is to look at each side of the equal sign or of the inequality. Look at the left side. Is there anything you could simplify? Look at the right side. Is there anything you could simplify? And yes, absolutely. What does simplify mean? It means distributive property and combining like terms. So I'm going to distribute the 2. 2 times n is 2n. 2 times 4 is 8. On the other side, now there's nothing else to do right here on the left side because you can't really add letters and numbers, so you're just going to leave it like that. And I'm going to bring down the inequality, so it's going to be a less than or equal to right there. Now on the right side, over here, I could distribute the 3 and then be able to combine like terms afterwards. So let's distribute first. You're going to say 3 times n, that's 3n, and then 3 times 7, that's positive 21. And let's bring down the minus 4. Now on the right side, again, we still have terms that could be combined. We have 1, 2, 3 terms. So let's combine the terms that are alike, the numbers with the numbers. So 21 minus 4, you just do this in your head. 21 minus 4, that's going to be 17. So you really have the new equation or new inequality, 2n plus 8 is less than or equal to 3n plus 17. And now we want to get n by itself on one side. Where's n at? Is it on the left side or is it on the right side? It's on both sides. So let's get the n by itself on one side. I am going to get rid of that 3n by subtracting 3n. I don't want n on both sides, so I want to get rid of this 3n. 3n take away 3n is 0. There is no n's. But what you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. So 2n take away 3n, that's like if I'm saying I have $2 and I owe $3, or I have 2 noodles and I owe somebody 3 noodles. I'm still going to owe them 1 noodle. Let me bring down the rest, the plus 8, the less than, the equal to, and the 17 over here. So for my final step, not final step, almost final step, is I need to get rid of the 8. I'm going to subtract 8. Subtract 8. I'm going to have negative 1n is less than or equal to 9. So for my final step here, I'm going to divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, and right here some bells should be ringing in your mind, right? What, I'm dividing by a negative? Yes, whenever you divide or multiply by a negative on an inequality, you have to flip your inequality symbol. So you're going to have n, you're going to have to flip it, and you're going to have negative 9, and that's your final answer.